The night sky above the forgotten planet was silent. Stars burned far away, and the air smelled of dust and old storms. A small exploration ship landed slowly on the rocky ground. Its engines gave a low hum before they went quiet. From the ship stepped a young explorer named Ilara. She had bright eyes, full of curiosity, and a strong heart that loved mystery. She looked around. The land was filled with broken stones and dark caves. Ilara had heard the stories before. The locals of nearby colonies called this place cursed. They spoke of shadows moving inside the caves and strange roars that echoed at night. They said no one who entered the caves ever came back. But Ilara was not afraid. She had come here for one reason. Inside these caves, she hoped to find something forgotten by time, something powerful. The wind pushed against her coat as she walked forward. The cave entrance stood like a black mouth, ready to swallow her whole. Her boots crunched on dry soil. She turned on her light and stepped inside. The cave was cold. Walls shined with strange crystal marks, glowing faintly blue. Each step deeper made her heart beat faster. There was silence, except for the sound of her breathing. And then, she saw it. At the center of the cave was a stone platform. Upon it rested a giant egg. It was not like any egg she had ever seen before. It was taller than her waist, glowing faintly with a red light under its black shell. Strange cracks ran across it, as if something inside was waiting to break free. Ilara's breath caught in her throat. This cannot be real, she whispered to herself. Her hand trembled as she touched the egg surface. It was warm. Too warm. A heartbeat pulsed inside it, slow, heavy, alive. Her eyes widened. Suddenly, the ground shook. Dust fell from the roof of the cave. The egg moved. Once. Twice. Then it began to shake harder. Ilara stepped back quickly. Her light flickered. The sound of stone grinding against stone filled the cave, as if the earth itself was waking up. The egg cracked. A thin line spread across its shell. Then another. The glow inside grew brighter, filling the cave with a red light. The sound of breaking echoed like thunder. Ilara's heart raced. She wanted to run, but her legs refused. Something inside her told her not to move. She had to see this. And then, crack! The top of the egg broke open. From inside, two glowing red eyes appeared. They blinked slowly, staring straight at her. Smoke rose from the opening, carrying a strange burning smell. A small head pushed out. Scales black as midnight. Tiny horns curled back. Sharp little teeth glistened in the dim light. It was a dragon hatchling. The stories were true. Ilara's chest tightened. She had seen dangerous beasts before, but never this. This was something out of legend. People spoke of dragons as monsters that burned cities, destroyed armies, and ruled the skies with fire. Yet here it was, small, newborn, but terrifying. The hatchling let out a sound. A hiss, mixed with a growl. Sparks of fire danced at the corner of its mouth. Its wings, still wet and folded, twitched as it tried to stand. Ilara took a step back, but then she froze. Because something strange happened. The hatchling tilted its head, looking at her with curiosity, not rage. Its glowing eyes were sharp, but also innocent. It did not attack. It only stared. Ilara blinked. Her lips curled into a smile. Against all reason, against all fear, the first words that left her mouth were not of terror but of surprise. "It's cute." The cave filled with silence. The hatchling made a soft chirping noise, almost like a baby bird. It stumbled forward, falling on its tiny claws, then stood again. Ilara could hardly believe it. The scariest dragon hatchling alive was standing before her. Its teeth were sharp, its eyes burned like fire, yet in that moment she did not see a monster. She saw a lost child of legend. But deep inside, she knew the truth. This hatchling was not ordinary. The ground trembled slightly with each sound it made. The crystals on the walls glowed brighter whenever it moved. The air itself felt heavier. Ilara whispered, "What are you?" The hatchling chirped again and stepped closer. Smoke rose gently from its nose. Then, from outside the cave, a deep roar echoed. It was not from the hatchling. It was something much bigger. Ilara's blood ran cold. She turned toward the entrance. Shadows moved across the cave mouth. The sound grew louder, like wings beating the air. The hatchling hissed and pressed against her leg, as if seeking protection. Ilara realized something in that moment. She was not the hunter here. She was not the explorer in control. She had just stepped into a story far greater than herself. And whatever came next would change her life forever. The cave was silent again, but Elara's heart pounded like a drum. She stood frozen, the strange little dragon pressing against her boot. Its scales shimmered faintly in the red glow of the broken egg. Outside, the distant roar echoed once more. Whatever made that sound was large, much larger than this small hatchling at her feet. Elara swallowed hard and looked down at the creature. Its glowing eyes blinked up at her, full of strange curiosity. For a moment, their gazes locked, and she felt something shift inside her chest. It wasn't fear anymore. It was connection. The hatchling sneezed, and a small puff of smoke rose from its nose. Sparks danced in the air, making her step back quickly. But the dragon only tilted its head, as if confused by her reaction. Elara whispered under her breath, "You are supposed to be terrifying, but you are kind of cute." The hatchling made a sound, half chirp, half growl. Then, to her surprise, it stumbled forward and rubbed its tiny head against her leg, like a cat looking for warmth. Elara froze again. She had faced alien beasts before, creatures with claws and fangs. None of them had ever acted like this. Slowly, she crouched down. Her hand trembled as she reached out. The hatchling's eyes followed her movement. For a moment, she thought it would bite. But no. It leaned into her hand. Its scales were warm, like touching heated stone. A soft sound escaped Elara's lips. A laugh, short and full of disbelief. "You're not a monster, are you?" The hatchling chirped again, louder this time. Its wings twitched, spreading slightly, though still too weak to fly. Tiny sparks flickered between its teeth, but it did not harm her. Instead, it followed her every move like a lost child. Elara stood, and the hatchling waddled after her, tripping on its own claws. She took a step back, so did it. She walked toward the broken egg, the hatchling followed close. It was bonding with her. Her mind raced. This was not how the legends went. Dragons were said to burn cities, destroy armies, and never show mercy. Yet this hatchling trusted her. But then she remembered the roar outside. Something else was here. Elara turned off her light quickly and crouched behind a large stone. The hatchling, not understanding, squeaked and waddled over to her side. She pressed a finger to her lips, motioning for silence, though she doubted the creature understood. The shadows at the cave entrance shifted. A flash of metallic armor glimmered under the faint starlight. Not a beast. Humans. 3 figures stepped inside. Their steps were heavy, boots crunching over stone. They carried rifles with glowing blue cores. Hunters. Elara's stomach tightened. She had seen their type before, mercenaries, greedy for rare finds. They must have heard the roar, just as she had. One of them raised his light and scanned the cave. His voice echoed against the stone. The stories were true. The last egg is real. Another man grinned. If the hatchling is alive, it'll sell for a fortune. Or maybe, it can be trained as a weapon. Elara's hand moved instinctively, shielding the hatchling. The little dragon pressed closer to her, trembling slightly. Her mind screamed at her to run. But where? The only exit was behind the hunters. She stayed still. Her heartbeat was so loud she feared they would hear it. One hunter moved closer to the broken egg. He bent down and touched the cracked shell. Smoke still rose from it. "It just hatched," he said. "It's here. Somewhere close." The others spread out, rifles ready. Elara held her breath. The hatchling, sensing danger, let out a tiny growl. Sparks lit up in its mouth. "No, no, not now," Elara whispered softly, trying to calm it. But the hatchling's little body shook with rising fire. Before she could stop it, whoosh, a burst of flame shot out. Small, but bright enough to light the cave for an instant. The hunters spun around. "There! Over there!" Elara cursed under her breath. She grabbed the hatchling and ran deeper into the cave. The mercenaries shouted and gave chase, their boots echoing against the stone. The hatchling clung to her chest, making sharp squeaks as sparks dripped from its mouth. Its tiny wings flapped wildly. Elara's lungs burned as she sprinted. She dodged broken rocks, her boots sliding across the dirt. Behind her, plasma bolts fired, striking the cave walls. Blue sparks rained around her. One blast missed her head by inches. The sound roared in her ears. She pushed forward. Deeper. Deeper into the unknown. The cave walls narrowed, forming a twisting path. Her light bounced off strange carvings etched into the stone. Ancient symbols. And then, the ground shook again. This time it was not the hatchling. A deep rumble came from below. The carvings on the walls glowed faintly. The hatchling's eyes burned brighter, as if answering some hidden call. Ilara gasped. What is this place? But there was no time. The hunters were close. She could hear their footsteps, their shouts, their weapons charging. The hatchling suddenly roared, a sound far too loud for its small body. The walls shook. Crystals embedded in the stone glowed with fiery light. The hunters stopped, fear breaking their chase. One whispered, This isn't just a cave. The ground split slightly beneath Ilara's boots. Dust rained down from above. She hugged the hatchling tightly, shielding it with her body. And then, from the cracks in the earth, a strange light poured upward. Golden. Burning. Alive. The hatchling roared again, louder this time, its tiny body glowing with the same golden fire. The cave was awakening. And Ilara realized the truth. The hatchling was not only alive. It was meant to awaken something much, much bigger. Ilara ran as fast as her legs allowed. The little dragon hatchling clung to her chest, its claws digging into her coat. Behind her, the hunters shouted, their voices echoing through the ancient cave. Blue light from their rifles flashed on the walls. Plasma bolts hissed past her head and slammed into the stone, leaving smoking holes. The air smelled of burnt rock and fire. The ground still trembled from the strange power that had awakened when the hatchling roared. The glowing symbols on the walls pulsed like a heartbeat. Ilara didn't understand them, but she knew one thing, the hatchling was connected to this place. Hold on, she whispered to the tiny dragon, though she wasn't sure if it understood. The hatchling chirped and let out a tiny puff of smoke. Its glowing red eyes shone brighter than before. Ilara darted around a sharp corner. For a moment, silence returned, but the hunter's footsteps quickly grew louder again. They were trained, fast, and determined. We can't let her escape, one shouted. The hatchling belongs to us, yelled another. Ilara's jaw tightened. She knew exactly what they meant. To them, the dragon was not a living being. It was a weapon, a prize, a fortune. But to her, it was more. The path opened into a wide chamber. Giant crystal pillars rose from the floor, glowing faintly with golden fire. Strange carvings covered the walls, showing shapes of dragons flying above armies, burning skies with their flames. Ilara slowed, her breath heavy. What is this place? She whispered. The hatchling squirmed, chirping excitedly. It stretched its wings, though too weak to fly, and its scales glowed faintly in response to the crystals. Ilara's eyes widened. You belong here. Before she could think further, a plasma bolt shot past her face. She spun around. The hunters had caught up. 3 of them spread across the chamber, rifles raised. Their leader, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, grinned darkly. Step away from the creature, he ordered. Now. Ilara shook her head, clutching the hatchling tighter. It's not yours. The man's grin grew sharper. Everything has a price. Even dragons. The hatchling hissed, tiny sparks flickering between its teeth. The hunters tensed, aiming their rifles. Don't, Ilara whispered to the dragon, but her voice trembled. The scarred man raised his hand. Take her alive. The dragon too. They fired. Ilara dove behind a crystal pillar. Plasma blast slammed into it, sending showers of sparks across the floor. The hatchling squeaked angrily, its small chest glowing as if fire built inside. No, not now. Ilara whispered. She held it close, trying to keep it calm. But the dragon roared, its voice louder, stronger than before. The crystals answered. A wave of golden light burst from the pillars, knocking the hunters back. Their rifles sparked, short-circuited by the energy. Ilara gasped. The chamber itself was alive. The scarred leader cursed. She's waking the ruins. Stop her. The hunters charged again. Ilara gritted her teeth, grabbed a broken rock from the ground, and threw it at the nearest one. It hit his helmet, knocking him sideways. She took her chance and ran deeper into the ruins. The hatchling clung to her, wings flapping wildly. The walls around them glowed brighter, lighting the path like a trail. It was as if the ruins wanted her to follow. But the hunters were not giving up. Their boots thundered behind her. The scarred man's voice boomed. You can't run forever, Girl. That creature belongs to us. Ilara didn't look back. She kept running until she burst out of the chamber into a narrow tunnel. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, but she refused to stop. The tunnel opened into another cavern. This one was vast, with a high ceiling where cracks revealed the night sky. Stars glittered far above. And then, a shadow moved across the stars. Ilara froze. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a cloud. It was wings. Massive, black, and ancient. The air shook with the force of a deep roar. Much louder than before. Much closer. The hatchling stiffened in her arms, chirping nervously. It buried its head against her chest, as if hiding. Ilara's blood ran cold. If this was what she thought. Another dragon. Not a hatchling. A full-grown one. The hunters burst into the cavern behind her. They looked up and froze too. Even their fearless leader's eyes widened with shock. Impossible, one whispered. The legend said they were extinct. The massive shadow swept across the cavern, landing somewhere outside with a thunderous crash that shook the ground. Dust rained from above, and the air grew hot, heavy with the scent of fire. The scarred leader's face twisted. He pointed at Ilara. We take the hatchling now, or none of us get out alive. The hunters raised their rifles again. Ilara hugged the hatchling tight, her mind racing. The little dragon was breathing fast, its scales glowing brighter with fear. The cavern trembled with every tiny roar it gave. She whispered urgently, "What are you? Why are they after you?" The hatchling lifted its head, eyes glowing like burning coals. It made a strange, almost human-like sound. A call. From far outside, the ground-shaking roar answered. Ilara's heart stopped. The full-grown dragon was coming closer, and this time, it was not going to ignore them. The cavern shook as the roar of the full-grown dragon rolled through the night. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the walls seemed to vibrate with the sound. Ilara's heart hammered inside her chest. She had never heard anything so powerful. The hunters froze, staring at the sky cracks above. Fear flickered in their eyes, but greed was stronger. Their leader, the scarred man, barked out orders. "Forget the big one. The hatchling is the key. Take it." Ilara clutched the small dragon tighter. The hatchling trembled, its glowing eyes fixed on the cracks of the cavern ceiling, waiting for the larger shadow to appear again. She whispered, "Shush, it's okay, stay with me." But deep inside, she was not sure if anything would be okay. The hunters raised their rifles. Plasma cores glowed blue. Ilara knew she had seconds before they fired. She pressed her back against a wall covered in ancient carvings. Strange symbols glowed faintly under her touch, pulsing with the same rhythm as the hatchling's breath. And then it happened. The carvings lit up. Golden light spread across the wall like fire in dry grass. Lines connected together, forming the image of a dragon with wings stretched wide. The hatchling roared, a tiny but fierce sound, and the light grew brighter. Ilara gasped. "You're connected to this place." The scarred man shielded his eyes from the glow but shouted, "Don't let her reach the ruin's core. That dragon is a weapon." The hunters fired. Plasma bolts streaked through the cavern. Ilara dove to the side, clutching the hatchling. Bolts slammed into the glowing wall, but instead of breaking it, the light absorbed them. The symbols burned hotter, and the cavern floor shook violently. The hunters stumbled, shouting in confusion. Suddenly, the ground split open. A narrow stairway of stone rose from the earth, glowing with golden fire. It spiraled downward, leading into the darkness below. Ilara stared in disbelief. The ruins, they're opening. The hatchling leapt from her arms, landing on the first step. Its scales glowed like molten metal, answering the power of the ruins. It chirped and looked back at her, waiting. "Ilara, move!" she told herself, her instinct screaming. She rushed down the stairway after the dragon. The hunters shouted behind her. "Don't let her escape!" Plasma blasts rained down, but the stairway seemed alive, shifting and closing gaps to protect her. The hatchling bounded down the steps, leading the way. Ilara followed breathlessly until they reached a vast underground chamber. Her eyes widened. At the center of the chamber stood a massive structure, half machine, half living stone. Its surface was covered in carvings of dragons, and its heart pulsed with golden light. It looked like an engine, ancient and powerful, but alive. The hatchling chirped loudly and placed its small claws on the structure. The golden light flared, filling the entire chamber with warmth and fire. Ilara shielded her eyes. This is some kind of weapon. Or maybe a guardian. The hunters caught up, skidding to a stop at the edge of the chamber. They raised their rifles again, but their hands shook. One whispered, "The legends were true. The last dragon awakens the forge." The scarred man's face twisted with hunger. "Yes. With this power, we can rule entire systems." He aimed his rifle at Ilara. "Step aside, girl. That creature is mine." Ilara shook her head, her voice steady despite the fear. "No. It chose me. And you will never control it." The hatchling growled, its tiny wings flaring. Sparks burst from its mouth, and the golden structure answered with a deep hum, like the beating heart of a god. The hunters opened fire. But before the bolts could strike, a wave of golden energy burst outward from the structure. It hit the hunters like a storm. 2 of them were thrown back, their rifles sparking uselessly. The scarred man staggered but held his ground, shielding his face. Ilara stared in awe. You can control this," she whispered to the hatchling. The dragon looked at her and chirped softly. Then it pressed its head against the structure again. The walls lit up with new symbols, showing visions of the past. Dragons soaring over cities. Wars fought between humans and beasts. And finally, one message carved in glowing letters of light. Only kindness can guide the last dragon. Only trust will awaken its true power. Ilara's throat tightened. She understood now. The hatchling had not chosen her by mistake. It had felt her kindness, her refusal to see it as a monster. That was why it trusted her. But the scarred leader wasn't finished. He raised a knife now, his rifle broken. His eyes burned with madness. "If I can't have the dragon, no one will." He charged forward. Ilara stepped in front of the hatchling without thinking. She spread her arms wide. "No. You'll have to go through me." The scarred man lunged. But the hatchling roared. This time the roar wasn't small. It shook the entire chamber. Golden fire erupted from its mouth, surrounding the scarred man in a storm of light. His scream echoed, then was silenced as the energy swallowed him whole. Ilara fell to her knees, covering her face from the brightness. When it faded, nothing remained of the man but scorched stone. The chamber went silent again. The hatchling turned and looked at Ilara with glowing eyes. It chirped softly, almost like a question. Ilara exhaled, her chest heaving. She reached out and stroked its warm scales. "You're not a weapon," she whispered. "You're hope." But above them, the cavern shook again. Dust rained down. The roar of the full-grown dragon returned, louder, closer, furious. Ilara's blood ran cold. She realized the battle was not over. The hatchling was not the only dragon that had awakened tonight. The chamber trembled as the roar of the full-grown dragon shook the earth. The golden fire of the ruins flickered, like even the ancient power was afraid of what was coming. Ilara stood frozen, the hatchling pressed against her boots. Its little body quivered, but its glowing eyes never looked away from the ceiling above. The roar came again, deep, endless, full of rage. Then a shadow passed across the cracks in the cavern roof. 2 enormous wings spread wide, blocking out the starlight. Ilara whispered under her breath, "The parent." The hatchling chirped softly, a sound filled with fear. It pressed closer to her leg, as if asking for protection. The ground split open as the massive dragon landed outside the cavern. The crash sent rocks tumbling and dust filling the air. The air grew hot, thick with the smell of smoke and ash. From the shadows, the full-grown dragon appeared. Its eyes blazed like molten fire. Scales black as night gleamed in the golden glow. Its teeth were longer than Ilara's arm, and its wings stretched wide enough to block the entire cavern entrance. Ilara's chest tightened. She had never seen anything so terrifying. It wasn't just a beast, it was a living storm. The hunters who had survived the ruins' energy screamed and fled. They dropped their broken weapons and ran, their footsteps fading into the tunnels. But the massive dragon didn't chase them. Its burning gaze locked only on Ilara. No, on the hatchling beside her. The little dragon chirped again, weak and uncertain. Its wings fluttered. For the first time, Ilara saw something new in its glowing eyes, sadness. The parent roared again. The sound shook the chamber, knocking Ilara to her knees. The hatchling staggered, squeaking, its small body glowing faintly in response. Ilara looked between them. She understood. The parent had come for its child. Her mind spun. She had only 2 choices. If she stepped aside, The hatchling would return to the great dragon. It would be safe, but she would lose the bond they had formed. If she kept it, she would have to fight the parent, and that battle would almost surely kill her. The hatchling pressed against her, as if waiting for her decision. Ilara's eyes burned with tears. "What do I do?" she whispered. The ruins glowed faintly again, as if answering. Ancient words shimmered across the walls. "Only kindness can guide the last dragon. Only trust will awaken its true power." Ilara's breath caught. It wasn't her strength, or weapons, or bravery that mattered. It was her heart. She placed a gentle hand on the hatchling's warm scales. "I don't want to lose you," she said softly. "But you're not mine to keep." The hatchling looked up at her, chirping sadly. Ilara stood slowly and pushed the little dragon forward. "Go," she whispered. "Your parent is waiting." The hatchling hesitated, wings twitching. It looked at her one last time, its glowing eyes shining with emotion. Then it waddled toward the massive dragon. The parent lowered its head, watching carefully. When the hatchling reached it, the larger dragon let out a deep rumble, not anger, but relief. The hatchling chirped and pressed its head against the giant scales. Ilara's chest ached. She had done the right thing, but it felt like breaking her own heart. The parent looked at her now. Its gaze burned, heavy and sharp. Ilara held her breath, ready for fire, ready for death. But the flames never came. Instead, the dragon lowered its massive head. Its burning eyes blinked once, slow, almost like a nod of respect. Ilara's eyes widened. She whispered, "You understand." The hatchling chirped and ran back to her side. It pressed its head against her hand, then turned back toward its parent. The parent dragon growled softly, almost like a command. Ilara realized what it meant. The hatchling had chosen her. It did not want to leave. Her heart raced. "No, you can't. Your parent will be angry." But the little dragon stood firm at her feet. Its glowing scales burned brighter, as if declaring its choice. The parent roared again, louder than before. The entire cavern shook. But this time, the roar was not just rage. It was warning. The ground split wider. Golden fire poured from the ruins, racing up the walls and across the ceiling. The carvings shifted, revealing new words. "The bond is sealed. Together, they will awaken the sky." Ilara's breath caught. The hatchling's eyes glowed golden now, no longer red. Energy surged from its tiny body into hers. She gasped, feeling the heat of fire flood her chest, not burning, but strengthening. The parent dragon stepped back. It spread its wings wide and gave one last thunderous roar, shaking the stars themselves. Then, with a powerful leap, it vanished into the sky above. Ilara stood in stunned silence. The cavern grew quiet again. Only the crackle of golden energy filled the air. The hatchling looked up at her and chirped softly, its eyes glowing with trust. Ilara knelt, stroking its warm scales. "You chose me." The little dragon chirped again and flapped its wings, sparks flying. Ilara's heart raced. She had faced death. She had let go. And because of that, the dragon had chosen to stay. But she knew this was not the end. The hunters had escaped. The galaxy would hear of this soon. Others would come, not just for the hatchling, but for the power of the ruins. And when they came, she and the dragon would face them together. For now, though, in the silence of the chamber, Ilara whispered one last word as she hugged the hatchling close. "Cute." The ruins glowed brighter, as if agreeing. Far above, thunder rolled across the stars. Something greater was coming. The night above the ruins was no longer silent. The stars shook as thunder rolled across the sky, though no storm clouds were there. The air itself was alive, charged with golden fire. Ilara stood at the center of the glowing chamber, the hatchling at her side. The bond between them pulsed like a heartbeat, warm, powerful, unbreakable. She looked down at the small dragon. Its scales shimmered with golden light now, no longer just red. Sparks flickered between its teeth, but its eyes were calm, focused. "You chose me," she whispered. "Then I'll stand with you." The hatchling chirped softly, leaning its head against her boot. But she knew peace would not last. The hunters had escaped. Somewhere out there, they would tell the galaxy. Word would spread fast, about the last dragon, about the ancient ruins, about the power hidden here. And already, she could hear the first answer. The rumble of engines. Ilara looked up toward the cracks in the cavern ceiling. Bright blue lights pierced the night sky. Ships. Multiple ships, descending fast. The mercenaries hadn't just fled, they had called reinforcements. The hatchling hissed, sparks bursting across its scales. The ruins answered, glowing brighter. The golden structure at the center began to hum, its energy building like a storm. Ilara's breath quickened. They're coming for you. We can't hide anymore. The ground shook as the first ship landed outside. Metal doors clanged open. Heavy boots thundered against the stone. Voices echoed, angry, eager, greedy. They're in here. Bring the beast out alive. Ilara clenched her fists. She was only one person. No weapons, no armor. But she wasn't alone. Not anymore. The hatchling spread its tiny wings and roared. The sound was small, but the ruins amplified it into a thunderclap that shook the chamber. Crystals cracked, light flared, and the stairway leading down sealed shut, locking them inside. The intruders shouted in confusion. Plasma rifles powered up. Ilara turned to the hatchling. If this is what you want, then let's show them. The dragon's eyes glowed golden, and the bond between them flared. Ilara gasped as warmth surged into her body. Her vision blurred, filled with fire and light. She felt her heartbeat merge with the hatchling's. And then, she understood. Not with words, but with feeling. The hatchling shared its spirit with her. It showed her skies filled with dragons, ruins burning with power, and a single rider guiding them not with chains or fear, but with trust. The ruins roared to life. The chamber walls split open, revealing a hidden passage upward. Stone stairs rose toward the night sky. Ilara grabbed the hatchling. Let's go. They climbed quickly, golden fire lighting the path. Behind them, plasma blasts slammed into the ruins, but the ancient stone absorbed every shot. The intruders screamed in frustration. Finally, they emerged outside. The night was chaos. At least 4 mercenary ships hovered above the ruins, searchlights cutting across the ground. Armed men poured out, weapons raised. The scarred leader was gone, but others had taken his place, more ruthless, more prepared. One pointed at her. There. The girl has the dragon. The hatchling hissed, glowing brighter. Sparks rained from its teeth. Ilara's heart raced. She whispered, if you trust me, then fly. The hatchling roared, wings stretching wide. Golden fire flared from its scales. Slowly, unsteadily, it lifted from the ground, carrying her with it. Ilara gasped, clinging to its warm body. They rose into the air, golden sparks raining below. The mercenaries fired, plasma bolts streaking upward. But the hatchling spun midair, weaving through the blasts with surprising grace. Ilara's fear vanished, replaced by awe. She was flying. The ruins below pulsed with golden light, answering the hatchling's power. Pillars of fire shot upward, striking one of the mercenary ships. The explosion lit the sky. The other ships roared, their cannons charging. Blue plasma bolts fired toward her. Left. Ilara shouted instinctively. The hatchling turned sharply, dodging the blasts. Their bond was real, it could feel her thoughts, and she could feel its instincts. They were one. Together, they soared higher, above the ruins, above the fire, above the chaos. The mercenaries screamed below, their weapons useless against the bond they could never control. Ilara looked down at the burning battlefield. Her chest ached with fear and pride. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was war. She stroked the hatchling's warm scales. We'll protect each other. Always. The dragon chirped, then let out a roar that shook the heavens. Golden flames erupted from its small body, spreading across the sky like wings of light. The mercenaries faltered, some dropping their weapons in fear. For the first time, they understood, this was no ordinary beast. This was the awakening of something far greater. The hatchling flapped harder, rising above the ships. The stars opened before them, endless and waiting. Ilara's heart raced. She didn't know what awaited them out there. But she knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The galaxy would soon learn that the scariest dragon hatchling alive was not a monster. It was hope. And she would be the one to ride it into the stars.